still silent. And 1 in 7 Africans will develop cancer before the age of 75. These deaths rarely make headlines, like Ebola, like Marburg, but they happen every single day. It's a slow motion pandemic. I remember a young mother who traveled for days seeking care at JKCI with a heart disease. She arrived too late. I still ask myself, what if care had been available closer to home? That is why Pen Plus matters. And if you scan quickly the 3 original countries of East Africa, Your Excellency, your country, my country is leading on this, if 39%. Can you go back to the previous slide, please? Followed by Kenya, and then Uganda. Pen Plus is about building on a simple principle. Next slide, please. No child with type 1 diabetes, no young person with sickle cell diseases, and no mother with heart diseases should have to travel hundreds of kilometers for life-saving care. Today, Pen Plus operates in more than 20 countries and saves over 100,000 people. Rwanda has achieved the national coverage. Honorable Minister from Rwanda, Dr. Sabin, thank you. Malawi has trained hundreds of clinicians. Ghana is strengthening health financing. Tanzania is following the trend, and many others are scaling up. Honorable guest of honor, these are not pilot projects. They are proof that children return to school, young people live longer, and mothers survive. This is equity in action. This progress has been possible because of strong partnership. I would like sincerely to acknowledge the Leon Harry Hamsley Charity Trust for its steadfast commitment to Pen Plus implementation across our region, to Roche for advancing women's cancer care, the World Diabetes Foundation for strengthening diabetes services, and the Wellcome Trust for advancing mental health across Africa. This partnership demonstrates what is possible when governments, communities, development partners, philanthropist organizations, private sector unite behind a common goal, ensuring that every African, regardless of where they live, has access to quality health care and the opportunity to live a healthy and productive life. Next slide, please. Excellencies, this is not only a health issue, it is an economic issue, a development issue, and a justice issue. When illness strikes working-age adults, families lose income, economies lose productivity, and nations lose potentials. As they say in Kiswahili, afya ni utajiri. Health is wealth. If you look on your slide, the continent every year is losing $1 trillion in productivity and access to NCDs. Yet, we spend less than 30 billion each year, and less than half comes from the domestic budget. Now, you can look at the economic. How do you spend less than 30 billion while you are losing $1 trillion? Look on the brighter side. Just by investing $1 US, the return is $7. So by 2030, for every dollar, US dollars, we are going to invest on prevention, on primary health care. Honorable guest of honor, I think it's wise to spend on health. Health has never been a cost. It's an investment which the countries will see the benefit. Next slide, please. We know what works, and I will wind up with this. First, priorities require actions. You can have a lot of priorities. Your Excellencies, 7 days from today, I'm going to be 1 year in this job. What I've realized, Africa does not have a problem of diagnosing what problems we have. Our challenge is on implementation. So, second, first, make NCDs a national development priority. Second, use physical policies that save lives, including taxes on tobacco, alcohol, and all the sugary products, cakes, juices, sodas, etc. Third, expand financial protection so illness does not mean poverty. And fourth, scale up PEN and PEN Plus nationwide. And fifth, protect children by creating a healthier environment. These are not costs. These are investments. Excellencies, a week ago, I visited refugee camp on Chad-Sudan border. It's a town called Adre. Over 1 million people are there. The temperature, one truth was very clear to me. Peace is the best medicine. Without peace, health system cannot function. Without peace, development cannot flourish. Let us therefore build a strong health system. Let us accelerate PEN Plus. Let us invest on health and in peace. Because illness should never determine destiny, because every African life has an equal value and dignity. And when history is written, let it be said, Dar es Salaam leaders chose action over delay, courage over complacency, and hope over despair. Umoja ni nguvu, unity is strength. WHO is here to stand with you. Mungu awabariki. Asanteni sana. Thank you very much.
Mama lishe mmetisha sana. Naomba tumpigie tena makofi Professor Janabi. Thank you so much, Professor Janabi, for your candid remarks. Guest of honor, may I request that we watch now the PEN Plus documentary, to be followed by the remarks from Mr. James Reid, Helmsley Charitable Trust, who is representing our sponsors this morning. The documentary. Asante. Asante, kina mama.
Across Tanzania, access to healthcare is being transformed. From communities and primary healthcare facilities to district hospitals and specialized centers, more people are now able to access essential health services closer to where they live. Under the leadership of Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, significant investments have been made in health infrastructure, expansion of health workforce, deployment of community health workers, and increased access to medicines, medical equipment, and diagnostic services. In response to the growing burden of non-communicable diseases, efforts have also been strengthened to promote prevention, early detection, and timely treatment through initiatives such as the National Know Your Numbers campaign and community-based health services. At the same time, national specialized institutions continue to bring expert healthcare services closer to communities through outreach programs that provide screening, treatment, and specialist consultation across the country, reaching thousands of people in need. These investments and innovations are helping to build a stronger, more resilient health system while expanding access to care for people living with non-communicable diseases. With this broader effort, Pen Plus has emerged as one of Tanzania's most significant achievements in bringing specialized care closer to the people. Pen Plus is the specialized strategy designed to decentralize the management of non-communicable diseases requiring continuous and specialized care from referral hospitals to district-level hospitals. These services address conditions such as diabetes, sickle cell disease, hypertension, cancer, asthma, heart disease, stroke, kidney disease, and other chronic non-communicable diseases that require close and long-term follow-up. Through Pen Plus, more people are now able to access quality healthcare services closer to their homes. Through Pen Plus, district hospitals are increasingly able to provide specialized services for non-communicable diseases closer to the communities they serve. Doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals have received training and mentorship to improve their ability to diagnose, treat, and follow up patients with complex health conditions. For the first time, some services that were previously available only at referral hospitals are now accessible at district hospitals. These improvements have increased access to quality healthcare, reduced unnecessary referrals, and strengthened the capacity of health system to serve communities closer to where they live.
Baada ya mradi wa Pen Plus huwa kuna kliniki za kila mwezi ambapo madaktari bingwa wanakuja, tunajiunga pamoja na sisi, tunaendelea kuona wagonjwa wetu. Kwa matibabu ya kibingwa yanapatikana katika daraja hili la hospitali ya wilaya. Kabla ya mradi haikuwepo hicho kitu. Kwa watu wanaona kwa matibabu ya kibingwa lakini wakiwa katika hospitali yetu ya wilaya. Mradi wa Pen Plus umeweza kuongeza nguvu kwa magonjwa ambayo yasiyoambukiza, hasa katika magonjwa ya sickle cell, ambayo ni selimundu, magonjwa ya moyo, pamoja na magonjwa ya kisukari cha aina ya kwanza na ya pili. Kupitia muda ambao tunaendesha kliniki ambao tunaendesha kwa mwisho wa mwezi siku 5, kwa mgonjwa anapata nafasi kuweza kupata huduma, na pia imetusaidia na sisi wauguzi pia kwa hapa maelekezo ya kutosha kwa mgonjwa, kwa tunapata wasaa mrefu wa kuweza kukaa na mgonjwa na kumwelekeza akiwa katika makundi na mtu mmoja mmoja, ili kuweza kurahisisha namna kuweza kuishi na aina ya ugonjwa ambao alikuwa nao.
The greatest success of Pen Plus cannot be measured in numbers alone. It is reflected in the lives of people it serves. For many years, countless patients faced the burden of traveling long distances in search of specialized care, while others missed treatment because of distance, cost, or limited access to services. Today, through Pen Plus, more people living with conditions such as diabetes and sickle cell disease are receiving the care they need closer to home, restoring health, hope, and opportunity to pursue their dreams.
Wakati ambao ulikuwa mgumu kwangu ni kipindi ambacho macho yangu yaliziba. Nilikuwa sioni, nilikuwa naingia cataract. Huo ndio ulikuwa wakati wangu mgumu. Kiukweli nilikuwa najisikia vibaya sana. Kwa kuona mambo maisha yangu ndio yanaishilia hapa. Huduma ya Pen Plus nilisikia baada ya kuja hapa hospitali. Nilivyolazwa ndo nikaelezwa kuhusu huduma ya Pen Plus na mimi nikaona hii ni nzuri, ikabidi nijiunge nayo. Kabla ya kupata matibabu, afya yangu ilikuwa ni mbovu sana. Nilikuwa siwezi kufanya kazi, nilikuwa siwezi chochote, nilikuwa siwezi kujihudumia mwenyewe, nilikuwa siwezi kujitibu mwenyewe. Tofauti na sasa hivi, baada ya kufanyiwa matibabu, sasa hivi naona kila kitu naweza kufanya. Naweza kujichoma sindano mwenyewe, naweza kujitibu mwenyewe.
Hali hii imeniathiri kwa sababu nilikuwa nakosa vipindi vya shule, masomo yalikuwa yananipita. Pia gharama za matibabu zilikuwa ni nyingi sana, na nilikuwa na hofu kuwa naweza nikapoteza maisha, yani muda wote. Nilikuwa siwezi chota maji, kukimbia kwa umbali mrefu. Pia katika masomo yangu nilikuwa napoteza vipindi vingi sana. Lakini kwa hivi sasa masomo yangu yanaenda vizuri, vipindi vyote nahudhuria. Pia naweza nikakimbia kwa umbali mrefu, naweza nikachota maji, yani kazi zote za nyumbani naziweza sasa hivi.
Kwa kupitia Pen Plus tofauti imekuwa ni kubwa kwenye maendeleo ya wagonjwa. Kuna baadhi ya wagonjwa tulikuwa tunapokea hali yao ilikuwa sio rafiki, lakini sasa hizi wapo kwenye matibabu na wanaendelea vizuri na wanafanya majukumu yao mengine. Tunaweza kuwafundisha wagonjwa wetu wanaweza kujihudumia wenyewe wakiwa hata wapo nyumbani, kitu gani cha kwanza afanye ili aweze kukaa sawa kutokana na changamoto walizokuwa nazo.
Sasa hivi naona ndoto zangu zinaenda kutimia, kwa sababu sasa hivi naona kwa sasa hivi naweza kufocus kama nilivyokuwa na focus mwanzo, ili niweze kutimiza malengo.
Kupitia huduma hii kusogeza karibu, imeniwezesha kwa mimi hapa kuendelea na masomo yangu na nimeweza kufaulu vizuri, na pia itaniwezesha kufikia ndoto zangu za kuwa daktari wa mifupa. Naamini Mungu atanisaidia katika hilo.
Motisha ninayopata kutokana na mradi wa Pen Plus ni matokeo ya wagonjwa wetu. Pale unapomwona mgonjwa alikuwa ni tegemezi, sasa anaweza kujitegemea yeye mwenyewe, kuna namna unajisikia moyoni mwenyewe, nasema okay, hii ni kitu ni kizuri, tukiendeleze.
Tanzania's experience demonstrate that investments in primary healthcare, human resources for health, community services, and specialized care can deliver meaningful improvement in people's lives. Through Pen Plus, Tanzania has shown that specialized services for non-communicable diseases can be brought closer to communities and made accessible to those who need them most. Pen Plus is more than a healthcare service. It is hope. It is lives being saved. It is proof that specialized care can reach people wherever they live. Welcome to Tanzania. Welcome to the 3rd International Conference on Pen Plus in Africa, ICPPA 2026.
Naomba tupige makofi. Let's all clap our hands. Thank you so much. Guests of honor, allow me before I invite my next speaker to the podium to also recognize the presence of a very important person in our midst. This is none other but Professor Jeannie Bookman, who is the co-chair of NCDI Poverty Network. If you can please rise so we recognize your presence. Guests of honor, allow me to also with him to request all NCDI Poverty Network partners to please rise so we can recognize your presence. NCDI Poverty Network partners, if you can please rise so the guest of honor can recognize your presence. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. Guest of honor, allow me now to invite Mr. James Reid, Helmsley Charitable Trust, for his remarks, to be followed by a brief entertainment from Police Tanzania. Let's put our hands together for Mr. James Reid. Karibu sana.
Good morning, everyone. My name is James Reed. I'm a program officer at the Helmsley Charitable Trust, where I oversee our global access work for the Type 1 Diabetes program. It's a real privilege to be here again back in Dar es Salaam, where this conference started, and to be in a room with this very distinguished group of participants. Thank you for being here and for engaging in this conference. I want to also thank the government of Tanzania, the World Health Organization, and the NCDI Poverty Network for convening us here again today. I want to start with why we're here. My remarks are going to echo what we heard a lot from Professor Janabi. For too long, children and young adults with severe non-communicable diseases in rural areas in this region have faced a stark reality. The care that keeps them alive is unfortunately often too far out of reach. There are no systems to care for them, trained health workers, diagnostics, medicines, follow-up services. These things are not always close to their home and therefore out of reach. Where I focus on type 1 diabetes, a child diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in rural sub-Saharan Africa can have almost a 40-year gap in life expectancy compared to somebody born elsewhere in the world with the same condition. Addressing that gap is exactly what brought Helmsley to this work and why we are such strong supporters of Pen Plus. 12 years ago, Helmsley began supporting local leaders and international partners who believed that integrating, localizing type 1 diabetes care alongside other severe non-communicable diseases was both achievable and essential to keeping people alive. And today we're seeing a completely different world. Nearly 20 countries are either implementing or initiating Pen Plus, and approximately 60 additional hospitals are now offering care, reaching over 15,000 individuals with these severe non-communicable diseases, and a total of 170,000 people overall with NCDs are being treated at these facilities. We're seeing massive progress across many of the countries that started early on. Rwanda has achieved national coverage of the Pen Plus program. Ethiopia launched its national strategy earlier this year, committing to almost 40% of those costs to be covered by its domestic national budgets, putting us on a strong position to scale in one of the largest countries on the continent. In Uganda, we're seeing wins like patient enrollment growing by 178% in under 3 years. Momentum is building. And what this shows is that country-led models deliver. When governments lead and when partners invest in health workers at a district level, when care is built into national systems, rather than one-off projects, the impact compounds over time. The progress is really a testament to the dedication of member states, the ministers and leaders in this room, partners like the World Health Organization and the NCDI Poverty Network offering technical support, the many implementing partners making this work possible, and the many funders that are rallying alongside this call to action. Partners like UNICEF, Breakthrough T1D, St. Jude's, the Scottish Government, World Diabetes Foundation, the Buckman Foundation are a few of the funders that have come together to support these national visions to move forward. And this progress matters more now than ever when you consider the moment that we're in. This model matters. As we heard, NCDs account for nearly 37% of deaths in the African region, and that share is rising. Governments, partners, and funders need to respond, but how they respond matters just as much. At a local level, integrated care means that health workers treating a child with sickle cell disease can recognize and manage type 1 diabetes or childhood heart conditions. At a national level, governments are being asked to do more with less, and integrated models like Pen Plus address multiple diseases together and help governments stretch their limited resources even further. And at a global level, the most durable progress happens when donors and partners align and stay committed to ministry-led strategies. And that's what Penn Plus looks like in practice and where we're seeing real success. For Helmsley, that's why this work is something we're continuing to invest in and have been committed to for over 12 years. We hope this conference brings other partners to the same conclusions. I'll be honest with you, this is just the beginning. There's a lot of work to be done. We need to continue expanding the number of countries involved in the network to meet regional WHO member state targets. We need to continue building and strengthening the workforce that makes this care possible. And we need to work alongside countries to make sure that there's sustainable financing to make sure that this model can continue to scale alongside other competing priorities. But what we've seen from this model is what happens when we work together. Helmsley remains committed to this work alongside member states, the World Health Organization, and with all of you. So I want to thank you for your collaboration, and again, thank you for being here this week for the ICPPA conference. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, let's once again give Mr. James Reid a big round of applause as we appreciate the support for making this conference a great success. I would also wish to translate the words that are being said by Mama Lisha, the ladies at the back. They say, cook very well, little sugar, little salt, and little oil. Let's recognize them by giving them a round of applause. Asanteni kina mama, hayo ni maua yenu kwa ujumbe wenu. Guest of honor, allow me now. Asante. Guest of honor, nimeombwa nipunguze Kiingereza. Naomba nilete kikundi cha burudani, kikundi cha ngoma. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a slight test of Tanzania's entertainment, which is going to be performed by the art group by Police Tanzania, to be followed by a very special message on Penn Plus by our beautiful young children that are here with us this morning. Then the permanent secretary will come and invite the guest of honor for his remarks, to be followed by remarks, the speech by the guest of honor, group photo, and then the guest of honor will go to see the exhibitions. Prior to that, we shall have the 2 panel sessions before we exit the room, so that by the time we break for lunch, we are gone for the day. So please, let's take a note. And this is to request Professor Julie Makani, who will be moderating the first ministerial panel, as well as Dr. Binta Sako, to please take a note that the sessions will be done just before we exit or we break for lunch. But for now, naomba Police Tanzania mtupe burudani yetu ili wageni waweze kuona Tanzania pakoje. Karibuni. Naomba mic, naomba mic.
Karibu wageni wetu waheshimiwa hapa kwetu Tanzania. Rais Dr. Samia atakupongeza kupokea
Very much, Police Tanzania Art Group, for that fantastic performance. Distinguished guests, I believe you've seen the gist of entertainment from Tanzania. Guests of honor, allow me now to bring our African child, our Tanzanian children, who have a very special message for Pen Plus this morning. Naomba bwana kamera waruhusu watoto wangu waingie hapo. Children, please come in now. We are ready to receive your message. Karibuni. Can we please clap our hands for them? Beautiful. Let's keep clapping for them as they come with the message.
My message is stop NCDs and protect lives. We deserve to live free from non-communicable diseases.
My message is take action for healthier communities because every child deserves a chance to grow strong and healthy. My message is our families, communities deserve better access to care, with treatment and support close to home.
My message is prevent and treat diseases early so no child suffers from disease complications and death.
My message is NCDs can affect anyone and anywhere. Every child or family can be vulnerable.
My message is care is needed close to home so children can access life-saving treatment without delays.
My message is diseases like diabetes and heart disease must not be ignored. They can take lives if left untreated.
My message is speak up so everyone can get treatment because every voice matters in this fight against NCDs.
My message is now we support Pen Plus for several NCDs, bringing specialized care to those who need it most. My message is our actions can save lives today. Together we can make a real difference.
My message is we act together for a healthier Africa, where every child has the chance to live a full and healthy life.
Guest of honor, I'm sure it will bless you if I bring the children to the back for a group photo with you. Naomba watoto tupande jukwaa. Hawajamaliza bado tuna ujumbe. Okay.
Our message as African children is one. Hashtag Our message as African children is one. Hashtag
As the children are mounting the stage, let's once again give them a big round of applause. Some of us cannot even remember what we were doing at this age, but these young children are carrying a very powerful message, not only to Tanzania, not only to Africa, but to the entire world. Let's give them a big round of applause. And as they take a group photo with the guest of honor, I request the permanent secretary to prepare for your remarks as well as introducing and inviting the guest of honor for his speech. Watoto wazuri tukae tupige picha sasa. They're all over. That's the beauty of being a young child. You let them be. DJ. Thank you so much. We can now go. Let's once again give them a big round of applause. Thank you so much, children, for being the ambassadors. Kiongozi wetu ni nani? Kiongozi wa watoto wetu ni nani? Naomba sasa upite hapa uweze kumshika mkono waziri, ya kushike mkono kwa kuandaa watoto wetu vizuri kabisa. Sarah, pita mbele ya meza ya waziri hapa. Kwa huku juu, kwa juu tu. Yes. Let's once again give them a round of applause. It's really been an eye-opening, beautiful message transmitted by these young ones. Asante sana. Guest of honor, without further ado, allow me now to invite Dr. Saif Shekalage, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health, United Republic of Tanzania, to give us his remarks and then invite you for your speech. As the PS is coming to speak to us, let's welcome him with a round of applause. Karibu sana.
Asante sana. Thank you so much. Honorable Muhammad Omar Mchengera, Minister for Health, United Republic of Tanzania, and our guest of honor for this conference. Honorable Sadam Kuya, Minister from President Office and Acting Minister of Health, from the Revolutionary Government of Zanzibar, Professor Muhammad Janabi, Director, WHO Regional in Africa, James Reid, our main sponsor. We appreciate your presence, Chief Medical Officer, Kalu, the Acting Director for Disease Control from the Regional WHO. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate also honorable ministers of health from different countries. Once again, we respectfully recognize your presence, and I know most of you are representing head of the state from the country that you are coming. We thank you so much for being with us here today. Members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Minister of Health and the government of the United Republic of Tanzania, I'm delighted to welcome you once again to Dar es Salaam and to this conference. Honorable guest of honor, we are honored today to host distinguished leaders, policymakers, health professionals, researchers, development partners, but also advocates from across Africa and beyond. Honorable guest of honor, the presence of our esteemed delegates for the next 2 days here today demonstrate collective commitment to improving access to quality health to people, but especially to those living with non-communicable diseases. Honorable guests, many have already said, even in the previous session in the morning, that NCD is becoming and is the leading of death, but also disability. It is also non-chronic diseases because it lasts long and it requires ongoing care. But also non-communicable disease, in most cases, it cannot spread from person to person. Hence, this is the habit, and this can be changed. Honorable guest of honor, having said that, it is why today we are having this conference. This conference is a very important platform for the sharing experiences, but also innovations, reflection from the previous meeting, but also lessons that will help to strengthen health systems and accelerate progress towards universal health coverage. Honorable guest of honor, Tanzania is committed to work with the fellow African countries, the World Health Organization, and all partners to fight NCDs. I wish to express our sincere appreciation to the World Health Organization, development partners and stakeholders, and also the main sponsor for this meeting. Your support has made this conference possible. Honorable guest of honor, it is now my singular honor and privilege to invite you to this podium to address this conference and share your vision on this conference. Honorable guest of honor, please welcome.
May you be seated. Honorable Ministers of Health, Excellencies, Professor Mohammed Yaqub Janabi, WHO Regional Director for Africa, WHO country representatives, leaders of the government of Tanzania, mainland and Zanzibar, my sister, Minister of State, President Office and Acting Minister of Health from Zanzibar, government officers from sister African countries, delegates from international and regional organizations, officials from World Health Organization, development partners, experts and researchers, representative of people living with non-communicable diseases, members of the media, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First and foremost, I give thanks to the Almighty God for His mercy, protection and grace, which have made it possible for us to gather here today. I warmly welcome every delegate who has traveled from across Africa and beyond to join us in Tanzania for the 3rd International Conference on Pain Plus Africa 2026. At this solemn moment, I invite each one of you to observe a brief moment of silence in honor of our brothers and sisters who have lost their lives to Ebola in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda. Your Excellencies, may you rise for a moment. We say prayers to those who have lost their lives. Thank you. We stand in prayers in solidarity with those still fighting for their lives, and we extend our deepest appreciation to the frontline health workers whose courage reminds us that public health is defended not only by the systems, but by the people who choose services over fear. Ladies and gentlemen, Tanzania is honored to host this important conference for the second time in 3 years. Having welcomed this distinguished gathering here in 2024 at this very venue, this is more than a meeting. It is a continental moment. It is a moment for Africa to reflect, to learn, to decide, and to lead. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to presidents, heads of states, ministers, and leaders from across our continent for accepting our invitation and enabling your team to participate in this historic conference. Your presence is a powerful statement. Africa is ready to build a health system that reach every citizen, protect every family, and leave no community behind. The theme of this third International Penny Plus Conference, Advancing Progress toward SDGs targets for NCD in Africa by 2030, reflections on Penny Plus, implementation, progress challenge, and the future, speaks directly to the work before us. It calls us to examine our progress with honesty, confront our challenges with courage, and shape the future with strategic clarity. This assembly brings together government leaders, experts, policymakers, development partners, researchers, communities, and people living with non-communicable diseases. Together, we represent a shared conviction. The future of Africa health must be built by Africa with partners through innovation, accountability, and solidarity. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa is facing a decisive challenge: non-communicable diseases, including diabetes, hypertension, cancer, sickle cell disease, cardiovascular disease, chronic respiratory disease, and mental health conditions are rising at a pace that demands urgent and coordinated action. For too long, NCDs were regarded as the disease of wealthier nations. That era of misunderstanding is over. Today, non-communicable disease are development challenges, productivity challenge, a household poverty challenge, and a national security challenge for health systems across our continent. When NCD services are unavailable, unaffordable, or too far away, families do not merely lose access to care, they lose time, they lose income, dignity, and sometimes the people they love. The burden is particularly severe in rural communities, where primary health care is often the first and sometimes the only gateway to prevention, diagnosis, treatment, rehabilitation, and long-term follow-up. Let us be clear: a health system that reaches people only after disease has become severe is not yet a system built for the future. The future belongs to health systems that detect early, treat close to home, perfect family from financial hardship, and sustain care over a lifetime. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the World Health Organization, non-communicable disease account for more than 43 million deaths globally of a year, every year, representing approximately 74% of all deaths worldwide. More than 17 million people died prematurely before reaching the age of 70. Cardiovascular disease alone claim about 19 million lives annually, followed by cancer, chronic respiratory disease, and diabetes, which together account for more than 80% of deaths due to non-communicable disease. The most troubling reality is that the majority of premature NCD related to deaths occur in low and middle income countries, many of them here in Africa. This means that the NCD crisis is not only a medical issue, it is an equity issue. It is a question of whether where a person is born, where they live, or how much they earn should determine whether they receive timely, quality care. Our answer must be firm and united. No Africa life should be lost because care was too distant, too costly, or too late. Ladies and gentlemen, Tanzania, under the visionary leadership of Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, we have confronted this reality with seriousness and resolve. Over the past 4 decades, our country has seen a substantial increase in non-communicable disease. NCD-related deaths have risen sharply from less than 25% in the 1980s to 39% in 2021. Cardiovascular disease, which affected less than 5% of our population in the 1980s, now affects about 20%, representing nearly 4-fold increase. Cancer claims approximately 45,000 lives annually in our country, Tanzania, with many women losing their lives primarily to cervical and breast cancer. Sickle cell disease continues to take the life of many children before the 5th birthday, while a significant number of children also die from type 1 diabetes. The impact goes beyond hospitals and clinics. NCD imposes a deep economic and social burden on individuals, families, and the health system. In Tanzania, cancer treatment and dialysis service account for 20% of our reimbursements made by the National Health Insurance Fund. Many families are pushed into poverty by the direct and indirect costs of these conditions, draining household resilience and weakening the wider economy. This is why our response must be bold. We cannot build tomorrow's economy on today's untreated disease burden. We cannot speak of inclusive growth while families are forced to choose between treatment and survival. Ladies and gentlemen, the government of Tanzania has taken a decisive and sustained action to strengthen the health sector and address non-communicable disease through multi-sectoral approach under the Prime Minister's office. The coordination is essential because NCD are shaped not only by health services but also by education, finance, agriculture, urban planning, environment, trade, technology, and community behavior. We have reviewed policies, legislation, and strategies to ensure that Tanzania's response is aligned, evidence-based, and future-ready. Key strategic framework include the Health Sector Strategic Plan 5, the National NCD Strategy, the Digital Health Transformation Strategy 2024-2030, and Tanzania Digital Health Enterprise Architecture. These instruments are helping us accelerate the digital transformation of primary health care through electronic medical records, telemedicine services, improved data use, and the responsible application of artificial intelligence. Tanzania is also implementing the National NCD Research Agenda, which provide a clear framework for research priorities and strengthen our ability to generate local evidence for local solutions. In the fight of NCDs against NCDs, data is not paperwork. Data is a direction. Evidence is not academic exercise. It is the compass of leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, Tanzania has increased investment in healthcare services by upgrading infrastructure at the primary healthcare level, where 80% of our communities can access services within 5-kilometer radius of their homes. This is a deliberate strategy. Care must move closer to the people, because distance should never be a diagnosis, and geography should never be a barrier to survival. We have equipped primary healthcare facilities with modern diagnostic and treatment tools, including 700 digital X-ray machines, 1,000 ultrasound machines, weighing scales, blood pressure machines, and diagnostic equipment for sickle cell disease, rheumatic heart disease, and type 1 diabetic. To strengthen the continuum of care from primary to tertiary levels, we have installed 45 CT scanners, 14 MRI machines, and 1 PET CT scan with cyclotron at our referral hospitals. We have expanded the number of LINAC machines from 3 to 8 and significantly improved the availability of diagnostic services and essential medicines, reaching up to 90% availability of essential health commodities. Furthermore, Tanzania has increased the budget allocation for non-communicable disease from 7% of total health expenditure in 2020 to over 24% of the health budget in 2024. With the introduction of universal health insurance, Tanzania is moving to significantly reduce the financial burden on citizens and protect families from catastrophic health spending. These investments are not isolated projects. They are building blocks of a national health transformation. They are designed to accelerate our progress toward SDG 3.4 on reducing premature mortality from NCD and SDG 3.8 on achieving universal health coverage. Ladies and gentlemen, the PEN Plus strategy is one of Africa's most important innovations for strengthening the management of severe chronic conditions to complex non-communicable disease close to where people live. It is an African response to an African reality. Specialized care must not remain locked in distant referral hospitals when patients need continuous support near their communities. Through PEN Plus, countries across Africa are expanding services for severe non-communicable disease to district hospitals and selected health centers. This enables patients to receive quality care without traveling long distance to secondary and tertiary facilities. It reduces delays, improves continuity, protect families from unnecessary costs, and give patients a better chance at longer, healthier, and more productive lives. In Tanzania, we have reviewed standard treatment guidelines and essential medicine lists to support the delivery of essential specialized services, including internal medicines, emergency services, general surgery, obstetrics and gynecology, and pediatrics at the primary healthcare levels. Through collaboration with development partners and the Samia Slow Outreach Program, we continue to expand PEN Plus throughout the country, especially in underserved and remote rural areas. This approach is essential to quality, equality, access for affordability, and quality. It is also central to reducing preventable premature deaths. I sincerely appreciate all local and international partners supporting NCD prevention and control efforts across Africa and globally. Partnership matters because no country can defeat the NCD burden alone. But partnership must be guided by country priorities, strengthened by mutual accountability, and measured by results in lives of our people. Ladies and gentlemen, this conference gives Africa a valuable opportunity to speak with one voice on health investment and the future of non-communicable disease services. We must increase domestic finance for health, strengthen research and innovation, improve access to medicines and health technologies, and build resilient health system capable of responding to emerging and re-emerging challenges. At the same time, we must invest more in prevention, public awareness, early diagnosis, health lifestyles, and community-based action. Hospital can treat disease, but a strong society must prevent it. Prevention is not a side agenda. It is the first line of national resilience. Sustainable development cannot be achieved without health and productive populations. Health is not a cost. It is an investment that generates social, economic, and human returns. A nation that invests in health invests in its workforce, its children, its women, its elders, its productivity, and its future. Health challenges knows no borders. Therefore, our solution must be founded on solidarity, partnership, and shared responsibility. Africa has enormous potential to become a global leader in health innovation, scientific research, pharmaceutical, manufacturing, digital health, and effective services delivery. The task before us is to turn potential into performance, and performance into lasting impact. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa has a large youth population, a strong workforce, and a tremendous development potential. But this promise cannot be realized if our young people are exposed to preventable disease, late diagnosis, and avoidable complications. Protecting young people from the consequences of NCD is not merely a health priority. It is an investment in the demographic dividends of our continent. Let this conference be remembered as a turning point in Africa, responsive to non-communicable disease. Let it be remembered at the moment we moved from concern to conviction, from commitment to implementation, and from fragmented action to continental leadership. We must leave this conference with practical recommendations that strengthen NCD service across Africa, particularly at the primary healthcare level. We must leave with renewed political commitment to invest more in the health of our people. Above all, we must live with a shared understanding that leadership is measured not by the speeches we delivered, but by the system we build and the life we save. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the government, and the people of the United Republic of Tanzania, I thank Professor Mohamed Yakub Janabi, WHO Regional Director for Africa, and his team for selecting Tanzania to host this conference for the second time. I also extend my appreciation to the organizing committee, development partners, stakeholders, researchers, healthcare workers, and the representative of people living with non-communicable disease for their contribution to the successful preparation of this important conference. I assure you that the government of Tanzania remains committed to implementing appropriate recommendations arising from this conference in order to strengthen prevention, control of non-communicable disease. I also call upon fellow ministers and our heads of state to continue demonstrating leadership through stronger health policies, sustainable financing, and regional cooperation in advancing the growing burden of NCDs. The measure of our leadership will be simple. Did we bring care closer to the people? Did we protect families from hardship? Did we prevent avoidable deaths? And did we build system worth of Africans' future? Ladies and gentlemen, before concluding, I invite our distinguished guests to take time to experience the beauty and hospitality of Tanzania. Visit the majestic Mount Kilimanjaro, magnificent beach of Zanzibar, the world-renowned Serengeti National Park, and the spectacular Ngorongoro crater, one of the natural wonders of the world. Tanzania welcomes you, not only as delegates, but as a friends of our nation and partners in Africa health transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my great honor and privilege, on behalf of Her Excellency, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, to officially declare the third International Conference on Pen Plus Africa 2026 open. I wish you a fruitful deliberation, practical outcomes, and renewed determination to build an African where health systems are stronger, care is closer, families are protected, and every life is valued. Thank you for your attention. God bless Africa. God bless Tanzania.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give the guest of honor one more time a big round of applause. Thank you so much, guest of honor, for your speech, which is giving us a direction for the next 1 year of where we're going before the next Pen Plus conference. Guest of honor, allow me, before I invite you to join the rest of the audience for two powerful panel sessions, to have a photo session, and then we shall go down and join the audience for the panel session. The panelists and the moderators are all already prepared. To begin with, may I call onto the stage? You will come from my direction and we shall exit through the right-hand side of the stage. Can I call all the full ministers present to please come onto the stage, to be followed by the country leads and the permanent secretaries. But for now, may I request the full ministers to please join onto the stage for a group photo with a high table. DJ nomba wimbo kwa chini chini, background.
First panel, which is the panel on, it's the ministerial roundtable that's really going to discuss resource mobilization, partnerships, and accountability for non-communicable disease action. So, as part of our panelists, we have 5 out of 6 members available, and I will call on them to come back to the podium. We have the Minister of Health from Mozambique, Dr. Usene Issa. Welcome. We have James Reed from Helmsley. Where is James? Thank you. Professor Mohamed Janabi from WHO Afro. Dr. Ali Haji Adam, Minister of Health Somalia, and Dr. Chris Baramusi, Minister of Health Uganda. Welcome. So you've all heard about the burden of non-communicable diseases in Africa, and this burden has significant socioeconomic implications. Despite this rising burden, the financing for NCD prevention and controls remains insufficient. It's fragmented. Do we have enough chairs? It's fragmented, and we're still heavily reliant on external funding, which is often not sustainable. So this roundtable will address two things. They will, first of all, recognize or acknowledge the challenges that African countries are facing, and this include limited domestic fiscal space for health, weak financial tracking and accountability systems, insufficient investment in prevention and primary health care. At the same time, there is low availability and affordability of essential NCD medicines and technologies, and within our countries, there's fragmented partnerships and coordination mechanisms. However, we do have emerging opportunities that exist. We have fiscal policies that we can put in place for health revenue generation. There is growing interest in innovative financing mechanisms. There is a growing and expansion of public-private partnerships, and there is increased momentum for African health sovereignty and self-reliance. Tanzania, like many other countries in Africa, also has regional initiatives on local manufacturing and pool procurement. So during this ministerial roundtable, I will invite the panelists to speak and to make specific comments. And we will start with the Minister of Health from Mozambique, Dr. Usene Issa, to speak about domestic resource mobilization and innovative financing mechanisms. I do apologize because of limited timing. We'll ask you to speak for 5 minutes. Thank you and welcome.
Okay. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All protocol observed. I'll try to speak in English because my mother tongue is Portuguese. But they told me that their translation here in Portuguese, I don't know, it's right. But I'll go ahead in English. Mozambique is facing the triple burden of disease, the persistent of communicable disease, and the rapid growth of non-communicable disease, NCDs, such as hypertension, diabetics, cancer, cardiovascular disease, including trauma and mental illness. The situation is occurring at a time when there is a progressive reduction in external financing and increasing macroeconomic constraints, requiring greater mobilization of domestic resources and innovative financing mechanisms. What we are doing as a government of Mozambique, we are work to mobilize the domestic resources has been strengthening the integration of NCDs into intervention historically funded for disease such as HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. We have adopted fiscal and contributory instruments to finance NCD's response, including specific taxation on products harmful to health, such as tobacco and alcohol beverage, corresponding to 35% allocated to the health sector with the aim of reduction risk factors and generating revenue to finance prevention and treatment action for this disease. Preparation are underway for a dialogue of health sector financing focused on strengthening domestic financing in the health sector. Partnership and cooperation. We recognize that combating NCDs require multi-sectorial partnership involving government,
anakuja mbio mbio hapo, utajua kama umeweka sauti za ngoja aenda sema utakuwa mchanganyikiwa au tishindo hanani baba bado unaudi exploring uzuri kwa mwenyewe hapo sura kuitomeke hapo hiyo isipo basi hapo ndo salama yao ya sasa ukiona kipenzi hata nikukumbushe nani sasa sawa kwa ziada inaitwa kwa ziada
diversify nice mechanism and strengthening partnership, transparency. Only in this way we will be able to ensure that NCDs do not compromise Thank you.
Kaka, kila kitu sisi nje kimezimwa, hamna kitu ambacho kimechomekwa.
Thank you. In fragile and crisis-affected setting, global health estimates suggested that nearly 1 in 4 deaths in Somalia today is linked to non-communicable diseases, and that share continue to rise. This is no longer a future risk. It is a present reality, unfolding inside health system already stretched by conflict, displacement, and reducing drought and recurring droughts. Like many countries represented here, operates in a context shaped by recurrent shocks, including conflict, climate change, displacement, and economic fragility. Yet, despite these challenges, we remain firmly committed to reducing the burden of non-communicable diseases and ensuring that no patient is left behind. Our experience has taught us one fundamental lesson. Continuity of care for non-communicable diseases cannot rely on emergency responses alone. It must be built on resilient systems anchored in sustainable financing and strong primary health care. The core challenge is financing as the binding constraint. Non-communicable diseases are rising rapidly in Somalia and the region, and increasingly affect our most economically productive population. However, the real challenge is not only epidemiological, it is financial. Our health system is characterized by high out-of-pocket spending, limited fiscal space, and fragmented and unpredictable financing flows. As a result, many households face significant financial barriers to accessing care, and continuity of treatment for chronic conditions remains fragile. This is not only a health challenge, it is fiscal, equity, and development challenge, and direct barrier to achieving universal health coverage and Sustainable Development Goal 3.8. In fragile setting, when financing systems fail, continuity of care fails. And that failure is felt immediately, not eventually, by the patient in front of us. A structural mismatch we must address. Our national analysis shows a clear imbalance, growing and long-term non-communicable disease burden, but financing systems that remain short-term, fragmented, and externally dependent. We are also facing increasing pressure from declining external support, creating potential financing cliff. We are trying to manage chronic diseases with financing models designed for emergencies, and this is not sustainable. Somalia's integrated response, linking financing to service delivery. In response to Somalia is advancing a strategic shift, linking financing reforms directly to service delivery and continuity of care. Embedding non-communicable disease care in primary health care systems, the government of Somalia has integrated the WHO package of essential non-communicable disease interventions, including Ben and Ben Plus, into our essential package of health services. We are scaling up training of nearly 1,000 healthcare workers, including community and frontline health workers, early detection and referral systems, and community-based service delivery. This investment strengthens prevention, early diagnosis, and continuity of care, even in hard-to-reach and humanitarian setting. Non-communicable disease care is not treated as a vertical program, but as part of a resilient primary healthcare system. Advancing sustainable and domestic health financing. We recognize that sustainable non-communicable disease care cannot depend on external financing alone. Somalia is prioritizing domestic resource mobilization through health taxes on tobacco, khat, and sugar-sweetened beverages, strengthening budget prioritization for health, and improving efficiency in resource allocation. At the same time, we are advancing national health insurance scheme endorsed at the national level to reduce catastrophic out-of-pocket spending and expand bullet financing and ensure protection for vulnerable populations, including those living with chronic diseases. This represents a shift from dependency to sustainability and from fragmentation to national ownership. Ensuring continuity of care during crisis. Key lesson from Somalia is clear. Health systems must be designed to function during crisis, not only in stable times. We are therefore integrating non-communicable disease services into humanitarian response frameworks, ensuring access to essential medicines and long-term treatment, strengthening collaboration with humanitarian partners to maintain continuity of care, because for patients living with chronic diseases, interruptions in care are not temporary, they are life-threatening. Strengthening systems, partnerships, and accountability. We are enforcing system foundations through strengthening national health information systems and data use for decision-making, advancing whole-of-government multi-sectoral approach under high-level leadership, promoting public-private partnerships to expand service delivery and efficiency, and improving alignment and pooling of resources. Every dollar must be aligned, accountable, and directed toward measurable impact. Based on Somalia's experience, allow me to highlight four key messages. Fast continuity of non-communicable disease care must be recognized as an essential service during crisis. Second, fragile contexts require predictable, flexible, and shock-responsive financing, not fragmented project-based support. Third, domestic resource mobilization is fundamental to sustainability and health system sovereignty. Fourth, financing reforms must be directly linked to service delivery outcomes, especially continuity of care. Excellencies, investing in non-communicable disease is not cost, it is an investment in resilience, economic productivity, and human capital. However, fragile countries cannot do this alone. We call on partners to support country-led financing strategies, embed non-communicable disease accessibility within humanitarian and emergency funding frameworks, align resources behind the national priorities, and invest in bullet and system-based financing approaches, and provide long-term predictable and flexible support. In conclusion, let me conclude with this message. In fragile setting, resilience is built by aligning financing, systems, and service delivery into one coherent approach. Ensuring continuity of non-communicable disease care is not only a technical challenge, it is a test of our collective commitment to equity, solidarity, and universal health coverage. Somalia stands ready to work with all partners to advance sustainable financing, strengthen systems, and ensure that no patient is left behind, especially in times of crisis. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now call upon James Wright from the Helmsley Trust to speak about strengthening global and regional partnership coherence for NCD responses in Africa. Welcome, James.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and an honor to be in a panel with the ministers. My fellow panelists spoke a little bit about what governments need to be doing in these financial challenges. I want to approach the conversation focusing on what philanthropies and global development partners like Helmsley can do to support this work. The reality is that I think a lot of private foundations often fall short of the goals that we seek to achieve. Generally, we see a lot of value in aligning around integrated government-led strategies, but the reality is that often programs can be time-limited, siloed, and layered on top of systems instead of built within them. And the result of that is duplicative effort, wasted resources, and progress that doesn't last past the end of the project. And so really, as funders coming in with external resources, we need to do better and make sure that we're rethinking how we support governments and their priorities. First, we really think about how we try to align around country-led plans and where we can mobilize resources to build those plans where they don't exist. In the case of Penn Plus, there's a real reality that severe non-communicable diseases, especially childhood onset conditions, have really not been part of government strategies, and from an equity perspective, those communities have been left behind. At the same time, Helmsley has a core mission of thinking about type 1 diabetes and how do we reach everyone we can. So we could have taken the approach to scale and build clinics and invest in siloed care, but we knew that it was important and we could go farther if we worked alongside governments to build those plans. We spent a lot of time investing in local implementing partners, seconding staff to expand the capacity of ministries of health, and build up those plans in collaboration in a way that, frankly, we at Helmsley wouldn't have the insights or the pragmatism to really execute well. An example of where that's gone really well is one of the earlier adopters of Penn Plus. Malawi is one where we've supported, along with other partners, to build a national operational plan. And as a result, they've mapped out really detailed approaches to train healthcare workers, upgrade facilities, and expand to districts. And as a result, Malawi's been in a better position to mobilize support from other groups like UNICEF, World Diabetes Foundation, Partners in Health, the Scottish Government, to align around the same strategy. And as a result, the country now has about 440 clinicians trained, 16 facilities upgraded, and over half of the country is reaching those original operational plans. And frankly, that's not something that Helmsley could have achieved by ourselves, but by aligning around that shared vision rather than our own vision, we can achieve much larger systems level scale even in a very resource-limited setting. Second, it's really critical that we think beyond our individual missions, and as funders, we need to think about mechanisms that work to catalyze and coordinate funding. Really, governments, again, are being asked to do more with less, and fragmented donor investments, one-off grants really do not move the needle the way they need to be. Helmsley's learned that really in order to think about moving care for type 1 diabetes, we need to improve the overall health system, and frankly, these are investments that are much larger than what we can achieve alone. When we think about insulin access, for example, that relies on reliable demand, diagnosis, linkage to care, supply chains, data systems, trained healthcare workers, and that requires sustained investments to reform and rebuild really large cross-cutting elements of the health system. Focusing on insulin alone will only achieve so much. So we've looked towards coordinated models and where we can catalyze additional funding. In 2024, along the United Kingdom, Japan, now Germany, and other partners like World Diabetes Foundation, we've invested in an initiative with World Bank called the Health System Transformation and Resilience Trust Fund. As a result of this, we've helped the health unit to expand some of their capacity and engage in a different way in health system transformation. And over the last year, they've doubled their overall NCD-related investments. The last year approved a budget of $2.6 billion going towards NCD-related health system reform. So the trade-off in moving a little bit beyond our immediate focus in type 1 and extending into a broader health system lens has made that our investment has really multiplied our ability to create lasting change, again, alongside country demand for that support from World Bank. The final lesson I'll share is really a call to action, and one where Helmsley's continuing to strive and think about how we can do better. It's important to work alongside governments, but there's also a reality that we need to be really working proactively to empower community-based organizations and people with lived experience to be part of those conversations and how programs are designed, implemented, and monitored. We've been investing with groups like Voices for Penn Plus, with the NCDI Poverty Network, and NCD Alliance, where we come together with a wide range of private and public funders to support capacity building for community-based organizations to engage in policy development and really shape programs that align with the needs of people. When people are at the center of that, the beneficiaries are decision-making. There's really a reality that those investments are going to be supported by citizens and advanced for the long run. So I'll conclude with just, again, those three main things that Helmsley has been thinking about. First, make sure that funders are doing what they can to align with government-led plans. Second, invest in mechanisms that catalyze and coordinate funding, ideally beyond your core mission. And third, think about how you can empower communities to be a part of decision-making and advocacy for additional funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. We will now hear from Dr. Chris Beramunsi, the Honorable Minister of Health in Uganda, and he will be speaking about exploring public-private partnerships and blended mechanisms for financing to expand NCD service coverage and sustainability. Welcome, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Permit me to recognize all of you distinguished participants. I come from Uganda, and I think I'm the newest Minister of Health in the continent because I was appointed a few days ago. And until recently, I was serving as the Minister of Information, Communications Technology, and National Guidance in the government of Uganda. This is my first public meeting since I was appointed, and therefore, Tanzania receives me with a lot of blessings. One, let me say that Africa is challenged with a dual burden of disease in terms of a big burden of communicable diseases. Like you see, Ebola is hitting DRC and there is spillover into Uganda. but also a big burden of non-communicable diseases, as we'll be discussing this morning. So this is a challenge we must appreciate. Africa is also faced with a challenge of rapid population growth. I think in many of our countries, you'll find the annual rate of population growth is around 3% or so, and doesn't match the rate of economic growth, giving us unsustainable population growth. We are also experiencing a high rate of urbanization, and with frequent health emergencies and many other challenges. And despite this huge burden, we have constrained resources, and therefore the traditional financing mechanisms for health cannot be adequate. To just say our governments sit and budget for health in our national budgets is not enough to address all these challenges. And therefore, there is an imperative that we must look at how we can innovate in the service delivery, in financing, in scaling up services in order for us to provide a quality of life of the people that we serve in Africa. And therefore, public-private partnerships become very essential if we are going to raise resources to address this big burden of disease within our continent. It should also be appreciated that the NCDs affect both the public sector but also the private sector. And I would want to call upon the private sector here to know that the big burden of NCDs in one way or the other also affects your work. And therefore it becomes important to work with the governments, to work with the ministries of health in order to contain these challenges. For instance, if you have a big burden of non-communicable diseases, this is going to undermine the workforce productivity in your companies. A big burden of NCDs undermines economic growth, and therefore it becomes essential to have this point appreciated, that the public sector must work with the private sector in order to address the question of NCDs and other health challenges. While we in the public sector might look at the motivation of having better health outcomes, maybe lowering the costs, I know the private sector sometimes is motivated by commercial gain, but in this case, commercial gain should not be the driving factor for the private sector to participate. Because, first of all, managing NCDs, you should look at it from a long-term perspective. The results, it requires lifestyle change, and therefore the private sector must be brought on board to appreciate that the benefits go beyond immediate commercial gain if the It becomes also important in this partnership to mobilize the public to also be partners, because if we are to successfully fight NCDs, it requires lifestyle change. If I talk about diet and nutrition, talk about exercises and many other things, these will take time, and therefore we must go along with the population, with the public. And as we identify which private sector partners we should get on board, we must also examine the value alignment. What does the private sector entity engage in? Are you going, for instance, to partner with a tobacco company when we know that tobacco is a leading contributor of NCDs? In Uganda, when I was a backbench member of parliament, I authored a private member's bill on tobacco control. But if I showed you and shared with you the experience of how the engagement from the tobacco companies, which even wanted to bribe me to abandon the bill. So in this engagement, are you going to partner with them? Probably not. Are you going to partner with alcohol companies? Are you going to partner with companies, say, which manufacture soda and sweetened products and so forth? So it becomes important to also identify the value alignment of the private sector partner if you are going to have a meaningful partnership. But definitely, public-private partnerships is the way to go if we are going to raise adequate financing looking at healthcare. In terms of blended financing, yes, like I have said, our traditional budgets are not adequate to finance healthcare, including NCD, in most of our countries. Our governments in 2001 agreed in Abuja to dedicate up to 15% of our domestic budgets to health. I am not very certain the countries gathered here, how many of our countries have been able to meet the budget? Few, if any. That means we must look for complementary sources of financing. Like World Bank, IMF, bilateral partners who are in our countries, so that we supplement our resources within our countries. But probably the comment I would want to make is that we, the national governments, should budgets and frameworks which are then supported with resources from our partners. In a number of cases, we have witnessed situations where partners and donors want to fund their own priorities and interests within our countries. They were saying, no, let's develop these frameworks, the budgets, and policies together, and then you fit into the country framework so that we are able to manage our local situations, but not to sit outside there and come with their own interests, and then you want to fund something which does not align with the national interests. In conclusion, I would want to say that we should develop clear national PPP frameworks with clear laws and risk sharing among the partners, so that into these partnerships, it is very clear on who does what. It is also important that we invest in the capacity building, financial analysis, contract management, oversight, and other areas, as well as improve data systems for evidence-based decisions. We must create an enabling environment for the private sector investment in our countries, but also engage communities, civil society, partners for inclusive implementation, meaning we as government do it alone. In Uganda, we have a fairly functional and supportive public-private sector engagement in health. In terms of health facilities, we have the mainstream public health facilities, but also we have what categorized as not-for-profit, mainly the faith-based health centers by the Christian churches, by Muslims and faith, but also the private for-profit health facilities, and we have a functioning partnership with all of these, but also we work with other private sector actors. So I would like to call upon our vibrant private sector in Africa, because we have many companies in manufacturing, in the telecom services, the oil companies, mining companies, transport companies, which are flourishing. And my appeal is that all these private sector actors should partner with the government, with health ministries to combat disease. In this case, the non-communicable diseases. Because in any case, a bigger burden of the NCDs and other health challenges will negatively impact on your business. And therefore, going forward, this is my call and appeal. And evidence is abundant that where the public sector has worked with the private sector, looking at low cost and high impact interventions, there has been success. And therefore, this is the call that they make to the private sector and other partners, that we work together for a better quality of life in Africa. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the remarks from Dr. Barrio Munsi, from the Minister of Health from Uganda. Thank you. I asked Professor Janabi to speak at the end. Professor Janabi, as you know, is the WHO Regional Director for Africa, and he would really share with us the importance of Africa health sovereignty for NCD financing. Welcome, Professor Janabi.
Can you hear me? Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Makane, for giving me an opportunity on this very important, but let me start with one big question. When you talk of health security, is Africa has the security? When we import more than 85% of our medicines, our diagnostics, and therapeutics in general, when literally we import 100% of the vaccines. So really it keeps us exposed. So, and many times when you hear of Africa health sovereignty, we often focus on medicines, manufacturing, and supply chains. These are essential, I agree very much. But sovereignty also means something deeper, the ability to finance our own priorities. Seychelles, the population is 100,000. Nigeria, 250 million. I have 47 member states. So each country has got a unique priorities. My point here, Central African Republic priorities cannot be Tanzanian priorities. The priorities of Tanzania cannot be priorities of Malawi. So to sustain, to be able to sustain our own priorities, sustain our own health programs, and remain accountable for our own population, it's very, very crucial. And here, honorable ministers ahead, the primary responsible person for the health of the population is the respective government, partners, private sectors, UN, non-UN agencies. We come to complement. So priorities of health, it's very, very crucial to the ministries of health. Now, to narrow it down now to NCDs, this has become our urgent test of that sovereignty. I presented earlier, today NCDs account for more than 1/3 of deaths in African region. And I'm sure you are all aware, 70% of premature death occur in our continent and developing countries. When we talk of premature death, we talk of someone dying before the age of 70. Now just ask yourself, how many of your relatives you know they've died below that age? How many of your deep friends, your colleagues at work? By 2030, they're expected to become, the NCDs are expected to become the leading cause of death across our continent. But you know what is most sadly? NCDs receive less than 2% of the development assistance for health, and domestic financing often remains far below what the burden demands. You see, what I see here, there is a disconnect between what is killing our people and what we are funding. We really have to go back and look, because the question is simple. What does kill our people? And this is where I think the funding priority should be given. So the good news is that we already know what works through WHO PEN and PEN Plus, NCDs best buys. Countries have practical, evidence-based intervention that saves lives and delivering very strong returns to the investment. The challenge is no longer knowing what to do. The challenge is financing these interventions at a scale it deserves. So I usually say, you cannot wish to eat a 5-course meal and plan to pay just for the salad. If you want a 5-course meal, prepare for the payment when the check comes over 5-course meal. So as a public health specialist, I learned a very simple thing. Prevention is far cheaper than complication. It costs far less to control hypertension than to treat stroke. Far less to manage diabetes than to pay for dialysis, amputations, or when somebody goes blind. So the same principle applies to economies. NCD financing is not consumption. It is an investment. It protects productivity, preserves household income, and safeguards the human capital on which Africa development depends. So to move forward, there are 3 actions which I would really like to emphasize. First, we must increase our domestic investment and ensure national budget reflects the realities of the disease burden out there. Second, we must make greater use of health taxation, Honorable Minister. We have to tax tobacco, we have to tax alcohol, we have to tax all the sugary or sweetened beverages. So measures that both they will improve the health of the population, and Honorable Minister Sada, it will generate revenue. You have been in the finance. And third, we must strengthen financial protection so that no family is pushed into poverty, because loved ones requires long life treatment, and especially for chronic diseases. So the diseases which are affecting our continents have really changed. So our financing also must change with them. Because when we were financing malaria, it's quite different when you finance somebody with diabetes complication. So if NCDs are among the leading cause of death in our countries, they must become among the leading priorities in our countries in financing. That is the essence of health sovereignty. And Honorable Minister, you touch a very sensitive issue, Ebola. I was keeping away from it. But just in one line to finish, I have to say I've been there in Ituri for 3 days. The situation is not very good. This time around, the viruses are ahead of us, because people started to die around February, March, April, is when the alert came. And initially, the health sector there was looking on malaria, looking on typhoid, and then towards April, they started to test for Ebola, but using test kits for Ebola Zaire. It was also testing negative. Then the social media picked up. that this might be poisoning, might be bewitching and everything. So just to fast forward, by the time we intervened to use Ebola Bodibonia, it was already beginning of May. So just in one line, that the deaths until yesterday, they were approaching 300, and we have 1,000 cases confirmed. The area is very challenging. There's a lot of war, militia fighting one group for another. So please, for neighboring countries and everyone, preparedness is the best, because as it was imported in Uganda, for the continent, the risk is still very high. For globally, it's low. Let me stop that. During the corridors, we can talk in details. Thank you, Professor Makani. Back to you, please.
Thank you very much. So please join me in thanking the panelists, the honorable ministers, James from Helmsley Trust, and the WHO Regional Director. Thank you very much for your remarks and interventions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Julie Makani and your panelists. As we are finalizing this session, I would like to welcome Dr. Binta Sako, which will comprise ministers of health from Eswatini, Rwanda. Please, let's put our hands together when they are coming here.
Honorable ministers, esteemed participants, partners, colleagues, it's an honor to be moderating this next session where we'll be unpacking the PEN Plus package of interventions that are being implemented in countries, and we will be exploring issues around leadership, collaboration, coordination, and integration. I'd first like to invite our panelists. We'll begin with Rwanda, with the Minister of Health, Dr. Sabine Sanzimana. Please join us. We also have the honor of having Honorable Charles Chilambula, Deputy Minister of Health from Malawi. And from Eswatini, the Principal Secretary, Mr. Mabuza Kanyankwezwe. Thank you very much for being amongst us today. Since this morning, we've been hearing about the burden of non-communicable diseases that's on the rise in the African region and forecasted to be a leading cause of death by 2030 if nothing is done. We've also heard the good news that we have solutions to tackle NCDs. But the difficulty is sometimes not in the policy, but rather in the implementation. And we have today the opportunity to discuss with our panelists their challenges, but also their successes and achievements as they implement the PEN and PEN Plus interventions in their country. Currently, we're at 30 countries that are implementing PEN, while 20 are already implementing PEN Plus. So I know we're a little bit short on time, so I'd like to ask my panelists to stick to about 5 to 7 minutes for their intervention. Thank you very much for this. If I may, I will begin with Malawi, but let me have a seat near you. Thank you very much, and apologies for the little glitch. I'd like to begin with Malawi, as your country was among the first countries in the region to develop a comprehensive PEN Plus operational roadmap. What leadership and coordination mechanisms were critical in moving from policy to commitment to a national-owned implementation plan? If you can elaborate a little bit on the collaborations you needed to put into place, and also the challenges that you have encountered.
Thank you so much. Malawi had to focus much on the strengthening the political leadership as well as the structured coordination across levels of health care. This one had to focus on various mechanisms, which first one is the high-level government commitment, whereby we have to prioritize our national health agenda, and as well as the universal health coverage efforts. So the government, the political leadership was there to take the lead and make sure that it's our priorities that are being focused on. And again, development of national strategies as well as costed operational plans, which we were able to translate the policy into actionable steps, as well as we also established multi-stakeholder collaborations where government, WHO, NGOs working together with the even academia. Our example, we have the Commons University of Health Sciences working together, NGOs like PIH, who are the implementing partners, and also the use of continuum of care framework, where we have to engage all the levels of care and be able to involve our implementation hasn't been like to be fragmented. So every partner have their role to play. So this one was able to, in this way, we're able to make sure that we are able to implement PEN Plus and be able to bring interventions closer to the people and be able to bring change, which was not there. People were dying, but with this coming in, even the health workers had challenges because we had no specialists, not being enough, and then issues of also supply chain. These were being our main challenges. But the coming in of working together and collaborating, training the people of lower cadre to be able to manage these cases, we are able to bring some changes.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience around collaboration, also task shifting you mentioned, and making sure that everybody has a role that they know and that they can deliver on. So thank you very much for also sharing the challenges that you've faced in the process. I'd like now to go to Eswatini with Mr. Mabuza. Eswatini has begun PEN Plus, integrating PEN Plus principles within broader health services. How have you approached integration of NCD care with existing programs? And I'm just giving examples around mental health, HIV, maternal health, and others. What opportunities and challenges have arisen from this integration?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. All protocol observed. Well, the Kingdom of Eswatini, I must say that we had to take a meaningful yet some people felt difficult decision Firstly, to convince those in power and the technicians, one must bring what you call empirical data of saying what is happening on the ground. So from our health spending assessments to we had to compile and consolidate that data to present a bankable case to say we really need to talk about NCDs in a more meaningful and directive manner. So a decision was taken that we have to do what you call a decisive health reforms, whereby we need to make sure that the PEN and the PEN Plus is meaningfully integrated into all national health policies. And at some point we had to go even to the point of looking at the operational plans. So we had to piggyback and leverage on a couple of policies. Firstly, we had to look at the National Health Sector Strategy Plan, if it was really meaningful to the response to NCDs. And then we also have to look at the different wide sector approach, and then we had to look at the health spending. I think, to be short, Madam Chair, is that you find that in Eswatini, the health expenditure is very high, and we aren't seeing the dividends. And then the question was why, and clearly so. We found that as much as we're working hard, there's so much that we're spending on NCDs. So that's when then we had to influence policies. So we had to look at issues of the National Health Sector Strategy, we look at injuries and mental health operational strategies, and then we had to then look at the accounting frameworks, and then resources and resource mobilization. So we created a policy that was as wide as that. But maybe to, as you said, we should be precise on the issues. We had to look at other impediments that we have to look at. As much as we talk about issues of ensuring that we integrate, we disintegrate at some point, and then we operate at the lower level. We looked at the issues of the workforce, and that if we do the integration in the workforce, are we going to manage? So we did the workforce assessments, and then we also look at the medical supply chains, because there's the issues of like NCDs in particular. We run out of stock now and again. So we had to look at the supply chain. And then you had to look at the end-to-end visibility on how we manage the investments vis-a-vis what we provide to the patients. So we had to look at the quality of service delivery. So I must say that we have done fairly well in terms of looking at those issues. But let me hasten to say that there are still challenges. One, we have the workforce capacity, because it's mostly a nurse-led initiative. So it's the workload capabilities, whereby you look at the workforce, it's still a challenge, particularly when it comes to the frontliners. We also have to look at the supply chain resilience. So at that point, we find that as much as we may have product free rate, medicine free rate, we still have some drugs that are very difficult to find. And if we do find, they are quite expensive. And then the issues of sustainable financing. NCDs are quite expensive, very expensive. And as a country, Swatini, with a very fragile and small economies, we find that we sometimes take patients at a complicated stage or late stage, and we refer them to expensive hospitals. So we had to look at sustainability and sustained financing. So when we did the calculation, we found that investing in the NCD, particularly looking at what we can afford when we do the supermarket approach, we found that it was a lot of cost saving. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Congratulations, Tini. Thanks for sharing your experience. I really appreciate how you use the power of data and your systematic approach in tackling NCDs in your country. You did a really very thorough diagnosis before finding the treatment. So excellent, excellent work. Thank you very much for sharing this. Now I'd like to turn to Rwanda. Rwanda is often cited as a leading example of PEN Plus implementation. How is domestic financing and health insurance coverage contributing to sustainable and equitable access to NCD services? But before we dive into that specific question, I'd really like you to share with us the key ingredients that make you the good example for PEN Plus so that other countries can also share. Over to you.
Habari zenu. Thanks so much, moderator and our guest of honor, Minister. Pleasure to be hosted here. And my fellow colleagues, ministers, leaders here, and the people of Tanzania, friends. It's a pleasure to join this conversation. WHO co-hosting us. So I'll be very brief between now and the lunchtime to make sure we all have the same message, because what we heard this morning was quite clear, and thank you for sharing. So this started in Rwanda, the PEN Plus, in a phased approach, exactly 20 years ago. In 2006, piloted in 3 districts, including colleagues that I see in the room. Dr. Jean has been with us for quite some time. So it has been really 2 decades implementation that now has reached 100%, as has been said, in all districts. And it built on existing system, integration of services, access to services, community-based health insurance, and how to make sure it's sustainable. It's not a vertical program you run because the resources are available from a partner, then disappears with the money. That is very important. So now we've reached a level of how do we integrate in our training system. We are launching soon a master's program in NCDs at University of Rwanda. I think the dean is here. She will be talking about this. It's the next step. And also how do we apply technology to make it even easier and more available with AI-powered tools. And how do we detect early at the community? So we have same statistics, looked at what has been shared, that nowadays people dying from non-communicable diseases in my country, it's close to 49% compared to other causes of mortality. So people are dying more from cancer, heart diseases, and diabetes than malaria, HIV, TB, diarrhea, malnutrition combined. And these changes happened in 2015. I looked at statistics. So non-communicable diseases are no longer diseases of developed countries, of wealthy places where they eat more sugar or processed. It's happening here on the continent. At least in the last 10 years, it's now the biggest problem we have in our health systems. The problem is we are not investing at the speed this is happening. It has been already explained by Dr. Janabi in his presentation. But there's also some good news, is that it's cheaper to prevent and to manage early non-communicable diseases than most infectious diseases we dealt with. So the same energy we use to fight HIV, malaria, and TB needs to be the same or even double the energy we use to prevent non-communicable diseases. So PEN Plus is one solution, but we have to include other solutions. And the biggest to me is prevention, the lifestyle, what we eat, how we move, and how we detect before people go to the hospital. The community level is 10 times cheaper than when you have someone at the hospital level. And this, I think, shouldn't be something to delay, because the cost is huge tomorrow if we don't act today. So I don't want to really take much time. It's just to share that we are 100% aligned, moderator, and the leaders here and everyone following that. The best way to manage non-communicable disease is to deal with it at the community level, in the kitchen, on the roads, how to reduce people sitting long. I was a bit worried when we sat too many hours today. I expect the moderator to ask we stand up and do some stretching. So that also can be good for our health moving forward. So I will pause here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much. And thank you for reminding us that prevention is better than cure for the individual, but also for our national pockets and our finances as well. And as you gave me the advice to get everybody standing, please, let's all stand and give a round of applause to our panelists as we prepare for lunchtime. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Oh, I'll give you that honor.
So once again, let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you very much. Guests of honor, kindly take your seat for one announcement, and then we shall proceed for lunch.
We have come to an end of day one session. We reconceive tomorrow's at 7:30 sessions. We'll convene at 8:30 sharp. High table will be visiting the booth. Right after my brief announcement, the rest of us will be proceeded to respective lunch venues as we had our tea. All participants at the Makiri right outside where we had tea, VIP on the first floor, Meru. As well as all ministers, WHO, UN, Excellency, head of courts, institutions, court of officials, and department of partners. Let's prepare our stomachs for food. The food is ready. You are very welcome.
Thank you very much. So let's reconvene tomorrow at 7:30. The session will commence at exactly 8 o'clock. The members of the high table, including the ministers, will join the guest of honor to visit the booth. And after that, we shall proceed for lunch. The VIPs will have lunch with the minister at Meru right after he has visited the booth. The rest of us, lunch is served outside where we had tea in the morning. Let us proceed for tea. But now the minister, guest of honor, and the rest of the fellow ministers will go visit the booth. Bon appetit. Let's come back tomorrow at 7:30 for the 8 o'clock sharp session. Thank you.